Yes, this is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation.
But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated.
One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Oh, it appears I already messed things up on the technical side. Hello everybody. Welcome to the show. We got a great one for you guys today. So, hold. Just checking to see if I got my audio all sorted out. I know last time I had a little bit of a problem with the audio, but everything appears to be looking pretty good. So we got a show today. That's for sure. So it's a good show. We're going to, of course, talk about Donald Trump and his attempt to hold on. We're also going to talk about, of course, Trump supporters. They're now really, really sorry, and they really want to be us. They really wanted to be us to be civil. So that's fun. We're going to also talk about Democrats. So Democrats not exactly happy with the results of the election, even though Joe Biden did indeed, as we're expected to hear very soon, win the election. So you might end up having like a, at best case scenario, 300 electoral votes. We'll see. We'll see. Should be really interesting. Hello, everybody, to those of you watching on Twitch as well. Love you guys over on Twitch. Let's see, as well as on YouTube. Let's see. All right, yeah. Here's we're doing pretty good. All right. Already we got a dono. Sarge Tech with the incredibly kind $5 saying Trump is filing lawsuits all over the place, but he can't file his taxes. Hilarious. I love it. Oh, I love it so much. All right. And Tempo Dan also says Trump goes down to save America. Melania, your turn to do the same. Good stuff. It's so good. Right now, by the way, the Associated Press is still not calling the Senate yet. It's still showing Republicans with a 48-46 majority so far. So there's a lot of races that haven't been called yet. But it does appear that the Democratic Party has picked up one seat. That's Arizona, Mark Kelly. So 90% reporting Arizona. You've got Mark Kelly kicking out Martha McSally. That's good news. Mark Kelly, of course, is an establishment Democrat. But hey, better than Martha McSally. And so that's what we're counting on this election. Then we're gonna probably get right into primary mode here. We should absolutely get into primary mode and start working on challenges to some of these corporate Democrats. So That's my plan. And in fact, one of the stories I have is maybe a blueprint to be able to do so, especially in conservative areas. So, all right. That said, I suppose we should start getting into it. Let's see. Yeah. What's my Twitch? My Twitch is Jeff_Waldorf. So you want to check that out. I do gaming streams on there as well, and on YouTube. So I don't really plan on doing any gaming streams tonight, but maybe this weekend. So don't worry. All right. So let's start it with Fox News. I'm sorry. All right. As Donald Trump's campaign finally goes down in flames after an incredibly close election, which is yet to be called, Trump himself is refusing to accept the possibility that he might not go on to serve a second term. In fact, there was a early morning Twitter storm where the president alleged massive voter fraud in Pennsylvania. In fact, here's what he said, quote, "I easily win the president of the United States with legal votes cast. The observers were not allowed in any way, shape, or form to do their job, and therefore votes accepted during this period must be determined to be illegal votes. Supreme Court should decide." Now, look, he's hoping to kick this over to the Supreme Court, where you have Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Roberts as well, all worked on George W. Bush's campaign, or not campaign, sorry, in his legal challenge, right? That's how George W. Bush ended up winning Florida, winning the election. So that is a bit of a danger. He's definitely trying to do that. Nonetheless, he wants to toss out hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. Ironically, of course, going back to Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh, they were on the side of, we should totally count mail-in ballots because it was expected to give George W. Bush an advantage. So a little bit of hypocrisy if they do that. That said, they've counted around, my count's probably out of date now, but they counted over 600,000 votes in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know if all of those are Biden votes. I think a majority of them probably were. They probably lean heavily Biden, as Philadelphia does. But understand that Donald Trump, even if some go to him, overall, if it makes it so that he does not win Pennsylvania and therefore does not win the election, then he's not going to win. And so he wants them all gone. So now, the thing is that he's calling this voter fraud. He's like, it's evidence of fraud. We must get rid of all the illegal votes. But at the same time, is there any evidence that they are illegal votes? Is there widespread evidence of voter fraud? No. Like every time they bring up a story of possible voter fraud, a bunch of holes get poked in it because they're fake. It's not real. It's not actually happening. There is no widespread voter fraud. There's even a story of a woman, I believe in Arizona, who said, I got my ballot mailed in, but I went to go vote in person. I never did a mail-in ballot. Okay, well, the state just comes out and they basically said, look, we offered her a bunch of different ways to resolve this. She declined every single one of them. We could give you a provisional ballot. No, she's caught to be a liar. And then there was a mysterious wagon full of so-called ballots that actually turned out to be camera equipment for the news crew that were there. And so all of these different conspiracies keep popping up online, and they keep getting shot down when you fact check them. It's weird how that happens. Like, it's almost as if we look into things, into these wild claims by conservatives when it comes to voter fraud, and every time it ends up being something that is not voter fraud. Weird. That said, this is why even Fox News is starting to shoot down the president when he talks about And not only as the president, but as his allies as well, in this talking point about voter fraud. In fact, take a look.
The transparency in watching the ballots is different than finding fraud that changes the direction, that narrows the gap. In in Michigan, it was 146,000 votes between Biden and President Trump. So are you saying that you're going to come forward in this press conference with something that's going to change the dynamic of 147,000 ballots?
I'm saying be patient and allow us to pursue these irregularities and some of these allegations that are very serious. Very serious. And so allow that to happen. Let the process take place. It's funny that we rush to judgment. We want to get this election over with. But if there is election fraud, which everyone accuses or says there wasn't, or if there were these irregularities, we need to pursue them. And I've had so many reports come in, and some of them are very, very serious. We need to go down that avenue and make sure that every vote that was legal is counted, but also that there weren't attempts to subvert the vote of people who were voting.
We agree with you, and we want to look into everything as well, but we just haven't seen it. You know, it hasn't been presented. There's all kinds of stuff flying on the internet, but when we look into it, it doesn't pan out.
Every time we look into it, man, it just doesn't pan out. That's because there's nothing there. But notice, of course, this is Fox News, so they have to kind of toe the line. They have to walk the line because there are so many Trump voters, i.e. Fox News viewers, that are convinced that there's some sort of conspiracy going on to rob them of the vote. And it's because they can't handle the fact that they're losing, that they're not going to win this election. The thing is, I'm not actually sure that I blame them for that. Now, let me explain. For the last 4 years, there's been nonstop conservative propaganda getting beamed into people's heads from places like Fox News, Breitbart, OANN. And really, all this conservative propaganda propped them up into believing that they're the silent majority of this country. That's what this comes from. It's the silent majority, right? And we're actually, the country is massively conservative. They all agree with Donald Trump. Now, that's not true. And so, but when you believe that you are the majority of the country and that everybody thinks the same way as you, and that you think, well, there's no way that I could lose. Fox News says that everybody agrees with us and he's the best president in the world, and that the left are just a minority of angry lip cucks. Well, I mean, you're going to think that once you start losing, once the majority, the actual majority comes out and votes against you, that the whole thing must be rigged. Well, it's not. It's not. And look, in reality, COVID is the MVP of this election, okay? You've got COVID, you've got an economic recession, you have the George Floyd protests, which galvanized millions and millions of people to march for racial justice. These happened under Donald Trump. And what did Donald Trump do? Nothing. He didn't do anything about this. He actually ended up making things worse because he's a shit manager. The guy can't manage himself out of a paper bag, and much less manage the country. He can't manage his own businesses. That's why he's losing millions and millions of dollars. That's why his businesses were, even before the pandemic, hemorrhaging money. He's done absolutely nothing to prove that he has any sort of business chops. He's not a stable genius. And again, just like his business, he ran the country into the ground over the last 4 years. And so, of course, you know, most people are going to vote against that. And it's not like they loved Joe Biden, okay? It's not like there's a ton of excitement about Joe Biden. I told you before, a ham sandwich could beat Donald Trump, and Joe Biden's a little less exciting than a ham sandwich. That also could be because I'm hungry. But anyway, regardless, the fact that even Fox News now is pulling away from those conservatives. And it's funny because I showed you guys a video yesterday when Francesca was on the show where you had Trump supporters, because they had the audacity to call Arizona for Joe Biden, were chanting, Fox News sucks. Fox News sucks. And so Fox News viewers are ready to turn on Fox as well. But here's something that's also pretty interesting. Because, look, you've got Ronna McDaniel. All right, Romney McDaniel, by the way. Just need to remind her of that little connection. she's saying, but there could be some fraud, and we just need to look into it. Trying to toe that line. But there are more savvy Republicans that, like Mitch McConnell, for example, that are kind of walking away from this rhetoric. And then you also have Rupert Murdoch. So now this is according to iNews' David Parsley. Fox head Rupert Murdoch spoke to Donald Trump earlier this week and actually told him, I think you're going to lose. In fact, I think, not only do I think you're going to lose, I know you're going to lose. Privately, he writes, Mr. Murdoch, formerly friend and supporter of of the president, is dismayed by Mr. Trump's inappropriate conduct since the polls closed, claiming all this fraud, right? The 89-year-old's backing for the president has been scaled back substantially in recent months as concerns grew about Mr. Trump's erratic performance and handling of COVID-19. And so understand that that's basically a result of him making investors in Wall Street very nervous, right? And not only that, but possibly damaging down-ballot Republicans, which in this case, you haven't really seen a whole lot of that since Republicans are actually set to pick up some seats in the House over moderate Democrats, and that's an entirely different discussion. And there's the possibility that a few seats might be picked up in the Senate. And so, thankfully for them, they didn't have to really worry about that. It sucks for us because, we're not going to be able to get anything done without a Democratic House and Senate, which we have the House, but it's very likely that Mitch McConnell will stay majority leader. And so that's that really sucks when it comes to progressive policy. That said, this Wednesday, Murdoch also called Mitch McConnell and asked him and his GOP colleagues not to bolster Trump's conspiracy theories about election fraud. McConnell apparently agreed, as evidenced by his Thursday morning comments where he said, claiming you've won the election is different from finishing the counting, which of course is what we all want to do. We want to make sure that the counting is done, no matter how it shakes out. Although it is going to shake out to Biden, we still want that counting done. Republicans have shown that they don't want to finish the counting if that means Joe Biden is going to win. Other senior Republicans also, according to Parsley, began to publicly question Mr. Trump's behavior in the aftermath of the vote. Such phone calls from Mr. Murdoch and his team may help to explain why the president has struggled to find many prominent Republicans to publicly endorse his wild claims, alongside the lack of any evidence of fraud, of course. There is no voter fraud. There is no insane, conspiracy with people, finding, quote-unquote, finding ballots in the middle of nowhere that just happened to be marked for Biden, or throwing away ballots that were meant for Donald Trump. That's just not the reality. And apparently Ronna McDaniel did not get the memo and seems to be happy with going down with the ship. Sad. All right. I just want to give a quick shout out here before I get to the next story here to John's Venn diagram of desire for the 5 tier 1 subs on Twitch. That's really awesome of you. Thank you so much. It's incredibly kind. With that, let's head over to the next story. We have Rick Santorum not having a good day, along with the rest of the Republican Party. CNN analyst Rick Santorum wants everybody to leave Trump alone and allow him to process his feelings. Take a look.
Give people time.
Yes.
I mean, he's just found out that he's, probably not going to be the president of the United States here. And I mean, you could say what was in the cards, but you don't know until the votes are counted. I mean, listen to John King. You don't know.
Schedule. It's democracy's schedule. It's not Donald Trump's.
Give his supporters and everybody time to figure this out.
With Hillary Clinton, that's what.
Which is why, David, thank you for the comment that saying we'll take trespassers out of the White House. It's not time to.
I agree
that
with
kind of
that.
rhetoric is not going to be helpful. This is a very emotional time. Had either side under this election, it would have. I mean, that's why they were. No offense, Anderson. That's why they're boarding up places in across the country, because they were afraid of if Joe Biden was going to win by 10 points and he loses, fraud. I mean, this would be the cry of the other side too. Let the process work.
I remember
give
when Hillary.
people space to work through this. And
I remember.
All right. With all due respect, Van Jones, shut up. All right. This is not the time for your bullshit civility. All right. No, this is great. This is the definition of Schadenfreude. And I know I probably said it wrong. I've got German viewers. Apologies. But look, I think it's funny. Oh, do you need time, Rick Santorum? Do you need a little bit of grief counseling? Is Trump having a sad? Are you having a sad? Oh. Now, look, I know a lot of you might be thinking, why you got to be a dick like that, Jeff? Come on. What the fuck's wrong with you? No, it's because the entire conservative movement under Donald Trump has been focused on liberal tears. So, excuse me if I say fuck you. All right? See, here's the thing. The difference between conservatives and progressives is, hey, it turns out I want to make the country better. I want to make the country better. And so I want people to have health care. I want people to have a clean environment. I want people to have higher wages, right? His entire side is based on owning the fucking libs. That's their entire ideology. That's their entire movement. They don't care about policy. They don't give a shit about making people's lives better unless it's their own. And so that's the problem that I have with Rick Santorum. And now he's saying, oh, whoa. You guys need time. You guys need to give us time to kind of process our fifis. No, shut the fuck up. You look. I'm going to say it. You lost. You lost. That's it. Like Donald Trump has to. Joe Biden's going to go make a statement later today. Okay, and by the time this probably goes up on YouTube as a clip, he might have already made that statement. I'm pretty sure he's going to say, we've seen enough. We've won this election. All right, great. Now, after that, it is up to Donald Trump to go and say, okay, we did our best. We campaigned our asses off, but we came up short. Unfortunate. Is he going to do that? No. He's going to cry. Why? Because that's what he's been doing for the past for the past couple of days. Not only has he cried, but he also says, I actually won it. I didn't lose. You guys lost. I didn't lose. I won. And all the votes that didn't go to me are fraudulent. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. So understand that, no, I don't feel bad for you. If you're a MAGA guy, I don't feel bad for you at all for losing. But at the same time, I also want you to have fair wages. I want you to have high wages. I want you to have health care. I want you to have a clean environment. And I want you to be able to go to grief counseling so that you can, talk to a therapist about your seemingly weird obsession about drinking liberal tears. That's it. And so, unfortunately, of course, there's a lot of Trump supporters that whenever they get into power show they want the exact opposite. For members of the LGBTQ plus community, they want to literally kill people, have them not be alive. And so that's kind of the big difference. But look, in the words of many of conservatives, I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, fuck your feelings, AOC 2024. Fun times. All right, let's move on. So first it's fuck the Republicans, but now fuck the Democratic Party. Oh, yeah. Good times. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has a few words for former Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill. So now, during an interview on MSNBC on Wednesday, McCaskill alleges that the Democrats lost seats in the House and failed to pick up a lot of Senate seats because they failed to focus on real issues and got sidelined by these, by not real issues, by just all the social issues. Take a look.
It's hard to pinpoint. I think it began around cultural issues. The Republican Party, I think, very adroitly adopted cultural issues as part of their main theme, whether you're talking guns or issues surrounding the right to abortion in this country, or things like gay marriage and the right for transsexuals and other people who we as a party have tried to, quote unquote, look after and make sure that they're treated fairly. As we circled those issues, we left some voters behind, and Republicans dove in with a vengeance and grabbed those voters. And you've seen this shift. You saw it in the South. I've seen it in the rural areas of my state. So we've got to get back to the meat and potatoes issues. We've got to get back to the issues where we are taking care of their families. And we also need to quit acting like we're smarter than everybody else, because we're not.
Well, that's fucking obvious. Yeah, you're not smarter than anybody else. All right, so for one, great way to go full turf there, Claire McCaskill. Appreciate that. Let me just say trans rights. But I'm sure you really helped your fucking case, dumping on the most marginalized community and saying, well, that's why we didn't win, because we didn't go transphobe enough. No, that's fucking ridiculous. Now, that said, she did apologize after everybody called her out. Quote, "Our party should never leave behind our fight for equality for trans people or anyone else who has been marginalized by hate. My record reflects that." No, your record reflects failure. You ran to the conservative right and you got crushed, because it turns out that if you run as Republican light, why would people choose Republican light if there's a Republican? Which is exactly what they did. Josh Hawley. But anyway, you want to talk about meat and potatoes issues. Okay, all right. I like meat and potatoes. All right, well, what's a meat and potato issue? Healthcare. Medicare for all, right? Access to guaranteed health care. Did you support that? Oh, you didn't. Oh, okay. Well, higher minimum wage, a living wage. For example, $15 an hour, which it's a start. Not nearly enough, but it's a start. Did you support that? Not necessarily. What about the Green New Deal? What about, millions of good-paying jobs in alternative energy? Did you support that? No, you didn't. You didn't do any of that. And by the way, these quote-unquote meat and potatoes issues do really well in even conservative areas. For example, Florida, that went overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, ended up passing in a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. Yes, it's slow to implement, but it's $15 an hour. So it turns out that we, progressives, are the ones that are focusing on meat and potatoes issues. But you can do that and also care about the social issues, like protecting trans people, especially black trans people black trans women that end up being murdered more than any other group. So yes, you can care about them, and you can care about those meat and potatoes issues, because I can guarantee that if you run on the issues of, hey, let's get everybody health care, let's get everyone higher wages, let's make sure you have a good environment, and also let's not allow other people, our brothers and sisters, to be, and everything in between, to be murdered, you're going to generally get a lot of support. No, she's an absolute loser. That said, AOC goes after her. Okay? Here's what AOC said on Twitter. She asked, "Why do we listen to people who lost elections as if they're experts in winning elections?" That's such a good response. McCaskill tried her approach. She ran as a caravan hysteria Dem and lost while grassroots organizers won progressive measures in Missouri. Her language here shows how she took her base for granted. And let me give you an example of that. In Missouri, voters approved via ballot measure to expand Medicaid in the state. So expanding Medicaid, that's a pretty progressive issue. Making sure that poor people are able to get health care, yeah, that is a meat and potatoes issue. All right? I mean, meat and potatoes. By the way, what they never mention here when they talk about meat and potatoes issues is the fact that it's an issue when you can't afford meat and potatoes. And that progressives are actually trying to solve that problem to make sure that everyone can actually be able to afford the basic stuff for survival, which a lot of people cannot do in this country right now. Even before the pandemic, you had 40% of Americans that couldn't afford a $400 emergency. It's worse now as a result of coronavirus. It's worse now. What are the Democrats planning to do about it? What can the Democrats do? Where's Joe Biden's plan on being able to pass a stimulus bill or to push a stimulus bill in Congress? Where's Nancy Pelosi's bill? So these are the things that we need to see happen soon. And yes, I understand that Pelosi had already passed the HEROES Act. What is she going to do to try to get that past Mitch McConnell's Senate? And so that's a big problem, and there's a lot of questions here. But as far as Claire McCaskill is concerned, well, she's not in power anymore because she's a loser, because she lost, because she doesn't understand these very issues. LGBTQ rights are human rights, and we should always be concerned about fighting for them alongside of the economic proposals, which also, by the way, help LGBTQ folks. So, meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes. All right. We've got more Democratic failure. Whoop. Speaking of failure. All right. Democratic officials and lawmakers are looking to blame somebody for some of their losses in the House and the failure to retake the Senate, despite, of course, favorable and lofty predictions by pollsters and pundits. And, of course, they're blaming the left. Starting with Representative Abigail Spanberger, who is a former CIA officer, and she is fighting for her life. Not in a literal sense, but her electoral life, by clinging to a 1.2% point advantage over her Republican challenger. And she's not happy about this. On Thursday, she raged during a 2-hour call as other moderates around her went down in flames. She said this, quote, "We need to not ever use the word socialist or socialism ever again," arguing that Democrats should watch Republican ads and adjust their messages accordingly. So her advice is stop talking about, actually doing things that help regular American people and watch Republican ads so that, we can agree with their framing and run away from anything that generally helps the regular American person. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. Now, she wasn't the only one to say something ridiculous like this. You also had House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn. Clyburn also warned that, quote, "If we're going to run on Medicare for all, defund the police, socialize medicine, we're not going to win." No, you're not going to get money from your donors. But how do you explain Election Day polling? This is exit polls that showed that 72% of voters favor transitioning to what they call a government-run healthcare plan. That sounds a lot like socialized medicine. That sounds a lot like Medicare for all. And yet, if we run on that, we're going to lose. We're going to lose. We have to adopt the Republican framing, and we have to say that Republicans are right about just about everything if we want to win our elections. Well, then why would they choose you? Why would they choose a Republican light over a Republican? That doesn't make any sense. But again, they all ran their campaigns as, I am not Trump. I'm Republican light, sure, but I'm against Trump. And you know what? That is an absolute failure of a strategy. And again, trying to appeal to the quote-unquote moderate Republicans as a Democrat, well, why don't we look at how well the Lincoln Project did? Well, so the Lincoln Project, never Trump Republicans, right? Try to get people to vote for Biden. So what happened? Did it work? Did you have a massive influx of never Trump Republicans go and vote for Joe Biden? No, it turns out the share of Republican voters that went for Donald Trump increased to 93%, away from 90. So you started at 90% back in 2016. Obviously, some of that can be explained by brand new voters, things like that. But was it effective? Absolutely not. There is no such thing as a moderate Republican. They're all going to go for Republican candidates. This whole idea of trying to run your messaging to the right and running away from things that are popular, like Medicare for all, like, higher wages, like environmental concerns, environmental legislation, it's ridiculous and it does not work. It absolutely fails every single time. And here's the thing. While these moderate Democrats went down in flames, you guess who won their elections? Progressives. All the members of the squad were reelected without a problem. You also had, in addition to the ranks, you had people like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. You also had DSA-backed candidates. These are the Democratic Socialists of America winning 26 out of 30 of their races. Pretty much everyone who went down was a moderate Democrat, with a couple of exceptions. And yet, for some reason, the Democratic Party wants to ignore the left, and not only ignore them, but blame them for their own failures. It's ridiculous. Look, people like Jamie Harrison had a ton of money. It still lost to Lindsey Graham. You also had Amy, For some reason, I keep thinking Amy Coney Barrett. Amy McGrath, she lost to Mitch McConnell by a ton. Charles Booker probably would have had a better chance. But no, we took this money and we lit it on fire. That's what the Democratic Party did. And unfortunately, that seems to be what they're good at. Taking this money and lighting it on fire and ignoring progressive candidates that actually had a better shot and in a lot of cases did win. And there were some races that we didn't. Kara Eastman lost against Don Bacon. I wonder what would have happened had she had the support of the Democratic Party, if she had the money that Amy McGrath had, if she had the money that Jamie Harrison had. Maybe we would have seen a different outcome. Maybe we would have more seats in Congress instead of less seats. It is an absolute failure of the party. And look, the bad thing about this too is that they keep going to the framing of Republicans are right. And so again, if you keep telling people that Republicans are right as a Democrat, then you're going to turn people off from the Democratic Party, and they might as well become Republicans. Way to create a winning message there. Now, progressives obviously push back against this. Here's Rashida Tlaib. Here's what she said. Don't blame myself and others who are fighting for issues that matter to our communities. Damn. I love Rashida Tlaib, by the way. Here's a representative Pramila Jayapal saying this, quote, House Democrats, don't be quick to blame the progressive members who have been responsible for energizing these groups who will ultimately save the day for the race for the White House. And also warned that House Democrats could see even bigger losses in 2022 and 2024 if they don't engage voters motivated by ambitious progressive policy platforms. And then you had the head of the Justice Dems, Alexandra Rojas. Here's what she said. They had one job and they blew it. We need a Democratic Party that stands for something more than just being anti-Trump. And then AOC saying, quote, there are folks running around on TV blaming progressivism for Dem underperformance. I was curious. So I decided to open the hood on struggling campaigns of candidates who were blaming progressives for their problems. Almost all had awful execution on digital, meaning that they were not focusing on social media, Facebook, YouTube, all those different ads. During a pandemic, underinvestment across the board. So a lot of these campaigns had a ton of money from the Democratic Party. What did they spend their money on? Well, I know. Consultants. Expensive consultants and television ads. They still do not know how to use their resources to target the communities they want to target, and are unable to deliver a message that resonates with regular working people. There's the problem. Now, she says, ideology plus messaging are the spicy convos a lot of people jump to, but sometimes it's about execution and technical capacity. Finger pointing is not going to help. There's real workable and productive paths here if the party is open to us. After all, I got here by beating a Dem who outspent me 10-1, who I knew had bad polling. She's not wrong. And look, understand that sometimes a bad campaign is just a bad campaign. And you can run a bad campaign and don't be surprised if you lose. The people who won on Tuesday did run better campaigns, and I think they had better messages. And so the problem here is the party's attempt to blame the left for what happened is both sad and, of course, entirely expected. AOC won her campaign by knocking on doors, doing a massive get-out-the-vote campaign. Now, in case you're wondering, why we've got coronavirus. We can't do that. Why would you say that you can go and do a get-out-the-vote operation? Because you still can. There's a way to do it safe. I mean, there are definitely ways that you can do campaigning, even in coronavirus, and make sure that everybody stays safe. But they decided not to do that. I think a lot of these campaigns didn't really have a message. They didn't really focus on outreach. And their main message was, we're not Trump. Well, you're not going to win if that's your entire message. But look, it sucks that they'll never admit to it, because it's easier to blame the other side. It's easier to punch left, as we've seen, but we know who's right. Right on policy, right on the messaging. And even though being right on messaging and policy doesn't always guarantee a win, it does help. I think it does help. And I think it's the direction that the Democratic Party needs to go in order to stay relevant. I mean, you look at Ed Markey. He's a great example of this. Ed Markey wasn't the hugest progressive, all right? But he decided to embrace the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, and guess what? Progressives showed up for him. Progressives volunteered, they called, they knocked on doors, they phone banked, and they supported him. Most importantly, they turned out. And that's what's important. It's really simple, guys. We're your base. If you back us, we'll back you. If you fuck around, well, then you're going to find out. Real simple. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. We've got an example of a campaign that won, running on progressive values. And so we're going to do that. I'm going to tell you how this person won in a rural conservative area, a socialist. I'm going to tell you that. So stay right here. We're going to come back. More stories around the nation.
I have not loved this conversation.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Wet ass P-word.
Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so just had to run back and forth downstairs. All right. Wow, it's a lot of viewers. 539. That's a little bit of a record for me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of our videos. Let me see if I have any donos here. Sensei2192, subscribe with Prime. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you for those who have sent in donations through the Super Chat. That is awesome. All right. Let's go into the final story here. As establishment Democrats rage over the loss of Sarah Gideon in Maine and the re-election of Suzanne Collins, progressives had a little bit of a victory in that same state. So now this is Democratic Representative Chloe Maxman. So now Chloe Maxman is somebody who's fairly progressive. She ran in a conservative district on the Green New Deal and increased, of course, local public transportation and actually won. This is 2 years after winning a seat in the state House of Representatives, representing the conservative rural district 88. Maxman secured a win in her challenge to state representative leader, Senate Republican leader Dana Dow. As in her first campaign for elected office, Maxman won over voters in the state Senate District 13, where residents chose Collins over Gideon. By engaging deeply with her community and offering a platform focused on climate change, investing in universal broadband, and healthcare as a human right. So, all right. So this is basically somebody who seems to be focused on policies that actually help the American people. And she won. Whoa, what a shocker. Let's get into more details here. So now, she told Common Dreams in an interview on Thursday, quote, "When I talk to folks, I mostly listen. I don't show up and talk about myself, like most politicians. Like, you've seen most politicians. Well, they'll come to an event and they don't really listen to you, but they sit there and they talk about themselves. And while it is important for them to, yes, give you a background and who they are and what they stand for, generally what's missing is the fact that the politician, you want them to listen to you. And that seems to be missing because they don't listen to you, generally. And then, of course, you get a lot of members of the Democratic Party that tell you, well, that you must vote for me. You don't have a choice. Well, for Maxman, she says, no. My whole campaign is based on listening to you and then trying to represent you. And so here's what she said. I really try and listen to make sure the voices that I hear are reflected in our campaign. The work that we do on our side is to really think about campaigns differently because we see them as one of the primary ways that we can start building a new type of politics. So we didn't use any party consultants. Party consultants, by the way, generally, I think are a detriment to Democratic campaigns. Every time they listen to well-paid consultants in the Democratic Party, those consultants, by the way, they get paid even if you win or lose. So they generally will give you advice like, stay away from, talking about things like universal health care. Don't say the word socialism. Don't do any of that stuff, right? Don't promise them anything. Just tell them that we're not as bad as the other guy. That's generally what they tend to do. She did not go that direction. In fact, she said, quote, we design all of our mailers, palm cards, postcards ourselves. We're all about authentic conversation and just had dozens and dozens of volunteers writing postcards or having conversations with voters and using the same style of just listening and not going around saying, you should vote for me because of this, but just trying to understand where people are at. So you want people to basically, most people want a politician that listens to them and understands where they're coming from. That's one reason why Bernie Sanders actually did so well. Again, if you guys remember, during the Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders was one of the only politicians that would get a room full of Trump supporters to clap and cheer for Medicare for all. And it's because Bernie Sanders went around listening to people. Bernie Sanders asked people, hey, what are you dealing with? Tell me your story. Turns out that's a really important thing to do when it comes to a campaign. You listen to people's fears, you listen to, their problems, and things that, their community actually needs. What a concept. Amazing. And here's what she said about that. My sense is that people really saw that we were doing differently and that I can be in office differently too. And she, of course, also called on her volunteers to reach out to every senior in her district and her network of campaign volunteers to provide food assistance with prescription drugs and identify transportation needs. So she literally used her volunteers to help regular people. That's important as well. So that got obviously a lot of positive reception from members of this rural community. That's what I feel like that's what we need to do. Ravaging Wolverine, by the way, in the chat says AOC visited public housing in my neighborhood and listened to people as well. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to listen to people, and you're supposed to, help them, to try to help them after listening to their concerns, and tailor your campaign to actually helping real people. So now, Marie Folietar, director of the progressive grassroots group Mainers for Accountable Leadership, also talked about this campaign and said, quote, Chloe is both a community organizer and an elected official. Not only is Chloe willing to listen to the people where they are, their dinner table or at their door, she is demonstrably responsive to their needs and leverages the organizing structure of her campaign to assist in her accomplishing mutual work. So, you remember how conservatives would laugh about Obama being a community organizer? And look, Obama is different than this person, okay? Obama looked authentic, but wasn't. Sold himself as a progressive, but really was more of a moderate. And so he's not the same as this person who was actually pushed for, by the way, like I said, increased investment in solar, universal health care, and also talking about a just transition for workers in fossil fuels and investing, again, in solar when it comes to newly built schools. And so that's what she did. She actually introduced her own state's Green New Deal. In the State House, she also sponsored legislation to provide access to rural public transportation, an issue she campaigned on this year and called the Great Equalizer in rural communities. And so what she did is she basically ran on socialism. Like, hey, community transportation, that's taxpayer funded to make sure that people have transportation that is free. Socialism, that's what that is. And so green, public transportation, green investment, making sure that people could get jobs, that's what all progressives are basically running on. And so understand that when Democrats and Republicans both fearmonger about socialism, well, that's all that is. It's fearmongering. I mean, public transportation is socialism. But it's helpful to the community. It's even helpful to conservative communities. And so, and what's interesting as well is that she was able to really pull out a victory in a place where conservative Democrats basically ignored. Again, conservative corporate Democrats, they say, well, let's forget about these areas. We're not going to win in these areas, so we're not going to put any resources into these areas. We're not going to campaign, and we're certainly not going to put any sort of investment. And that does allow Republicans to pick it up. Whereas we could win in these areas if we actually put resources towards these areas. I think if Democrats want to win over rural voters, this is the way to do it. Of course, unfortunately, most of them won't. I mean, could you imagine someone like Chuck Schumer going and speaking to the quote-unquote rabble in upstate New York? No. Or Nancy Pelosi talking to somebody who's worth less than $100,000 a year. It would never happen. It would never happen. All right? Inconceivable. And that's why they don't understand that. And unfortunately, they never will. Progressives, we do understand that. And that's why, in the end, we're going to reform the Democratic Party into one that actually serves the people and people's interests. All right. You guys are conflating socialism with social programs, services. Seriously. Look, I understand the meaning of the word socialism, right? Hold on here. Just kind of address this. So, yes, technically, socialism is seizing the means of production. And what that means essentially is things like worker co-ops. Democratizing your workplace. That's actually what socialism means in the historical context. But right now, conservatives have been able to change the conversation for that, to conflate any sort of social service with, that kind of socialism. And so technically you're correct, but at the same time, yes, it is the actual definition. You seem to be splitting hairs there, Leslie. I love you, but I get what you're saying. And technically, and again, you're right on the definition of it. But at the same time, it's like this kind of semantic discussion kind of takes away with the whole point of making sure that people understand that what conservatives fearmonger about quote-unquote socialism is not actually bad. And that's kind of the point. All right. That's kind of all the stories that I have today. Man. Let's see. Oh, finally it pops up over here. Over on Twitch here. Let's see. I'm just reading a couple of comments before I go. Maria Hall DK says that kind of personal in-person campaigning is one of the reasons why it said Bernie had better support in the Latin American community. This is what, of course, Joe Biden did not do. Joe Biden hid in the bunker. And so, yeah, when you're not out there talking to the people, take some Q&A. I might as well. Yeah, go ahead and ask some questions. Not semantics. It's a real incremental concern. Well, again, look, Leslie, if I come out and tell somebody that I'm a socialist, right, they're not going to understand what we mean. And right now, the word socialism has essentially been morphed into a catch-all for anything that is, anything that the government does. And so right now, it doesn't really have a meaning anymore. And so what we need to do is first actually educate people on what socialism actually is versus social programs. And then we can start to have that more, that conversation. At least that's my opinion. Oh, that's adorable. There's still somebody who thinks that Donald Trump is going to win this. Hold the Democratic leadership to account by challenging the status quo for as many times as it takes until the leadership actually listens and then reforms. Gad, I would rather. I don't think that they're going to change. I definitely think that we should try to challenge them, and I think that we should primary them. So how are police, garbage men, firemen, department not socialist? Yeah. Exactly. Why are progressives always so mad at everyone? We're not. I mean, I'm a progressive and I'm not really angry at anybody. But I do want to hold people accountable. And I think that really gets like confused with, I hate you, you're angry, whatever. No, we don't like corruption. We don't like greed. And we want to make sure that everybody gets health care. And that's it. The male is in the Constitution. Socialism, since ideal paradox. Everyone sounds sure as a worldview, nor expresses self-doubt, so we're all liars. Used car salesman. It's a reaction to asshole fascists. That's fair, too. That's fair. Let's see. Are there any... don't be browbeaten into believing that dropping the word is a smart move. Definitely learn about it on your own time. Can we celebrate that Bannon's Twitter got banned? Banned? Bannoned? He got banned? Well, hey, that's what happens when you threaten to, murder two elected officials. Or two government officials. Sorry, they're not elected. Eat a burger. Probably later, my friend. Probably later. Break bread with opposition. You find that they aren't bad, stupid, or irrational. Break bread, literally. Look, to give a shout out, that's what Vosh does. He debates, Nazis. He debates all these people. But there are some people that he debates that he's able to turn to the left. And so, I have respect for that. As controversial as a figure that he is. And I think most of the controversy around him is this bullshit anyway. He does something that's good, turns people away from the alt-right pipeline. Well, that's fantastic. And this is somebody who considers himself a socialist. And so I'm in favor of that. And I find that I have a lot of similar viewpoints to that. Joe Biden does not care about this country. Why would you vote in the White House? Why would somebody vote for Donald Trump? Why would somebody vote for any of these politicians? Most of them don't give a shit about the country, my friend. And that's the problem. If you think Donald Trump cares about anything other than his wallet, I don't know. You must not be paying attention to the things that he cares about. And so what we need to do is we actually have to have politicians that represent us. And in order to do that, we need to get rid of the money in politics. How do I feel about the runoffs in Georgia? John Ossoff. What was the other one? Do I think that let's see. Do I think that they will have a shot? Shane, that's a good question. Georgia, you would have to, look into the county ballots that are left to count and all that. I'm not entirely sure if Ossoff is going to beat Purdue. It's so incredibly close. We'll just have to see. Let's see. My AP, my Associated Press map is stuck. It's stuck. Let's see. More comments here that I'm going to respond to. Thank you, Joe Shalom, for the very kind $5. This country needs a lesson in nuance. Yesterday. Yeah, I find that there's a lot of people on both sides that don't tend to understand nuance or care about having a nuanced conversation about really anything. Everything tends to go to extremes and then name calling. And I participate in that too, let's be honest. Of course. I just ran a segment earlier saying fuck your feelings to butthurt Trump supporters. That said, I also said in the same segment that I want those same Trump supporters to have health care and to have high wages and to have a good life. So it's one of those things where it's on the one hand, I'm like, fuck your feelings, ha, but also now I'm going to fight to get you health care. So let's see. A couple more here. I think Ossoff has a chance. Well, he's definitely got a chance. We'll just see if the votes come up to him or not. I have faith in Biden. I'm willing to give it a chance, unlike most of you, says Alexi Blue. Look, it's not that, okay, a lot of, you're right that a lot of people do not have, are not going to give Biden a chance. That's for sure. The way that I see it is we're stuck with Biden at this point. We will try to influence as much as we can. He is a little bit malleable, but generally I think he's going to tend to trend towards the money, but we will get good things out of a Biden presidency. We're going to get back into the Paris Climate Agreement, which I wish we could do more, but that's where we have. Okay, we've got that. We're hopefully going to get into another deal with Iran, so we don't go into a war with that. On the other issues, maybe we'll have an increase in the minimum wage. Again, everything that Biden does is not going to be enough. Understand that we need bold, progressive action. That's why I'm a progressive. DACA could be restored. That's good. Another good point. It's going to be not great, but it's also not going to be as bad as Trump. So that's the nuance that I feel like everybody hates. Nobody wants to hear that. It's an unpopular position. It's an unpopular opinion. But it is. I feel like that it's the truth. And I'll be the first one to admit that I'm wrong. And I'll be, of course, the first one that is going to, go after Joe Biden when he doesn't do the things that he needs to do. And Thomas Tube says, the real fight has just started. You're absolutely correct. Biden better be 1/10 good of a Bernie. I hope so. I really, really do. Let's see. Trump is a sore loser. Yeah. Oh, the meltdown is going to be fantastic. It's coming. How many people will die of COVID under Biden? There will still be a lot. Understand that there will still be. No, we don't. There will still be a lot of people that will die of COVID under Joe Biden. That said, will it be as many as Donald Trump? Again, we just hit over 100,000 a day. Joe Biden gets a hold of this pandemic, and we reduce down to 10,000, a day. It's still terrible. It's still a horrific loss of life. But it's an improvement. It is an improvement. And so that's, again, what we're looking for, an improvement in what's going on. If we can get a handle on COVID, that's going to be something maybe closer to 250,000. President Carlson. Do you really want, like, President Carlson? Like, okay, what is somebody who was the heir of Tyson Chicken? Is he the heir of Tyson, or he's some sort of heir to some, like, company? What would he know about addressing the needs of the people? No, the guy's a fake populist. Is that and his populism, quote unquote populism, goes down to racism. Come on, like, Trump was also a sore winner. I heard Ted Cruz is running in 2024. Yeah, okay, the heir of Swanson. Thank you. I always forget. If socialism kicked in, we'd all stay home and not be ruined financially and take control of the spread. It's not happening under asshole A or asshole B. True. That is true. You guys know what I would do with COVID, right? If I were, God, president, emperor of the United States or whatever, if I had the power to do so, yeah, we would take at least probably a month, few weeks at most. I would defer to the scientists on how long, but I'd do a lockdown where we make sure to send people a UBI and, mask mandates, everything like that. Keep them locked down for a good few weeks, and then make sure that people socially distance, all that stuff, until we've controlled the spread. It would suck, but we would have control of the virus and then institute things like contact tracing to make sure that, we could lock down any place that has a spread pop up, things like that. Let's see. I believe that progressives using people to explain socialism is a bad method. If you use corporations taking tax dollars, that's socialism. Use the fake capitalist to explain it. The method, of course, it does matter on how you explain things, but you have to catch people where they are. You have to make sure to explain it in a way that people understand, that isn't too wordy, that isn't too, easy to confuse. You've got to really kind of boil down things to a simple message. That's how conservatives do it. They boil everything down to extremely simple messages, sound bites even, to convey simple ideas. The trouble is, of course, boiling down our complex ideas to those simple, ways of getting them across so that people understand. Let's see. Hold on here. Saw a comment here. Follow medicines and science. How is this controversial? Right? It's true. It's true. COVID was going to be bad regardless. Trump's failure to mitigate the lead led to 200,000 now instead of, say, 200K when a certified vaccine was created. Yeah, which is going to be like probably another year. And so, yeah. Again, when I say like Donald Trump bungled COVID, it's because he's had no national strategy. Even under a presidency that was that had a national strategy, we were going to see a lot of deaths from COVID-19. Like, that's unfortunately unavoidable. But what you can do is mitigate and minimize. And that's what Donald Trump didn't do. He didn't minimize the risk. He didn't mitigate the spread. And so that's the problem. Like, I would have, look, if Donald Trump had actually taken control of this situation and said, okay, buckle down. It's going to be unpopular, but it's the patriotic thing to do to wear a mask and socially distance. That's what men do. That's what real men do. We wear masks and we socially distance, and we control this virus. And here, we're going to help you out. Mitch McConnell, we're going to give people $1,000 a month. Now, of course, $1,000 a month, it's like, we're dealing with Republicans, remember. So $1,000 a month is probably more than they'd be interested in doing. But we could get him, but maybe he would have done that because that probably would have saved his presidency if he had done at least that. $1,000 a month, wear masks, socially distance, and all that stuff. Not downplayed the virus. Did other measures. Like, I think closing off the borders to China and Europe, perfectly fine. Perfectly warranted in this situation. But he didn't do that. He did close off to China, kind of. But that was in result to a result of, basically his advisors telling him to do that. $1,000 a month was the plan when UBI was introduced in the 60s. Yeah. Hindsight politics. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have right now. How do I wear my mask without my glasses fogging up? It happens every time. It doesn't matter. I always end up fogging up my glasses when I'm out there. And so, yeah. Close borders to illegals, is that unreasonable? It's not unreasonable to close off the borders during a pandemic. That's not unreasonable. Otherwise, I don't care if you're documented or undocumented. I think you should be able to come into the country. As long as you follow the laws. That's really it. Anyway, look at Project. Project Veritas is garbage. I'm just saying. My thoughts on communism? Just like pure libertarianism or pure capitalism, it doesn't necessarily work. I don't think. I do think that socialism, for sure. What's wrong with workers having a stake in their workplace? That's what I feel. I feel like workplaces would go better if you actually have a stake in your workplace. If you have a stake in ownership of the company that you work for. Now, how that would translate into larger businesses, that's a question, right? And that's something that needs to be worked out. But generally, like, okay, socialists are lame. Sorry. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right. All right, guys, I really do appreciate this. I love the fact that we had a ton of viewers today. I'd love to do more of this. I've got to get my editing started so that I can go and get all that taken care of and get these clips posted up online. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for going around the nation. Please subscribe, like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. All that wonderful stuff. Check out the show, and thank you all. Let's see. Oh, that's ridiculous. No. Who's been... Oh, okay. One more thing before I go. Somebody's saying that Biden's going to send all the jobs to China. A lot of our jobs are already in China. And I'm sorry. You think the McDonald's down the street is going to send their job to China? We're a service economy, dude. No, we're a service economy. Those jobs can't go. They're impossible to outsource. And if you think manufacturing is going to come back in this country in a big way, if you deregulate, if you cut their taxes to nothing, no. It's not going to come back. It's not going to really have an impact in a meaningful way in this country. So that's super ridiculous. That's such a ridiculous point. America doesn't produce anything. We offer services. Like I said, we're a service economy. Edward, they're going to do burger bots anyway. We have to have a conversation of whether or not we're going to allow automation to improve our lives, or if we're going to allow automation to create a permanent underclass dystopia, which already I'm seeing it head in that direction, but it's a longer conversation about where we're going to end up with automation. So, I'm sorry, but I don't have to read every standard troll comment, but they're the most fun to respond to. All right. Thank you all anyway. I got to do this again. Love you guys. Thank you all for staying here, for asking questions. Yes, even to the trolls, except for the anti-Semitic one that I'm looking at. Like, seriously, what the fuck are you doing? Love you guys. And you have a great weekend, okay? And we'll see you back here on Monday. Oh, next week, we'll be having Benjamin Dixon back on. So, for the Benjamin Dixon Show. So, I'm looking forward to that conversation. That's going to come sometime next week. Stay tuned for that. All right. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. We'll see you later.
It's like sharks, NATO, except for poop. Give me a break. Please clap.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Mike Pounds.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Burmicia, they say, pronounce it Burmicia, a real beautiful company.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.